Good morning, my narwhals. We are ready to start a new math lesson, but before we begin, I have someone here who wanted to say hello. She's been missing the class. So, hey Shelly. She's just climbing up on her coconut this morning. All right, well, let's get started. We're gonna start topic 14, which is area covering regions. All right, so there's a couple of things we need to remember as we start this. The first, vocabulary words. The first is estimate. And remember, estimate is not an exact number. It's an educated guess. We round often to find estimates when we're trying to find a number that's close to 856. We would round. However, for area, our estimate's gonna be just a little bit different, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So we have estimate, and then of course we have exact, and that is a particular number that represents what you are counting. So if we want an exact number, it is a certain number that is only the right answer, and it represents what you're counting. All right, let's move on to our area. What is area? Area is the number of square units needed to cover a region. It's how many square units you need to fill in or to cover up a particular shape. All right, there's two ways to find area. The first way is the most common way. It's the way we are not doing today, but we will do as we get deeper into topic 14, is to multiply your length times your width. So one thing you need to remember as you go throughout school is that area, it's a formula. Area equals length times width. So we're going to multiply. All right, the second way, which is the way we're going to focus on today, is if you're using grid paper, you're going to count the squares. Counting the square units. And this is when your shape is on a grid. All right, so what I've done to actually practice this is, and I know you might need to pause the video to finish your notes because I'm moving quickly. But what I've done to show this or to practice this is I have taken your student textbook and drawn some shapes here on grid paper. So today what we're doing is we are going to count to find the area. So step 1 is to count to find the area. And then our step 2 is we have to tell if it is exact or an estimate. Okay, so those are the things we're going to be doing. All right, so let's get started. All right, so here we go. We're looking at number 1. And because we're not multiplying today, we're just going to count the squares. And so what you want to do is to start by counting your whole squares and then go to your partial squares. All right, so we have 1, and I put numbers in them as I go so I make sure I can. That helps when you go back to check. You don't have to go back and recount all the squares. You can just look at your numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I have about a half square. It's a little more than a half square here and a little more than a half square here. But if I add those two together, I have 6. And then I have a little half square here and a half square here. And if I add those together, it is a 7. So my area equals 7 square units. And now step 2, I have to tell if it's exact or an estimate. Well, because I didn't have 7 whole squares, because I had to put partial squares together to make wholes, then it's not exact. It's not going to be exact unless you have exactly 7 whole squares. But I don't know if that's exactly a half piece or if that's exactly a half piece. And so when you have a circle or curves in your shape, it's always going to be an estimate. So we're going to say estimate. All right, let's look at number 2. Number 2, we have here, we could multiply. If we had done this on morning work, we would divide it into 2 separate rectangles and find our area. But today we're not doing that. We're counting to find our area. So we're going to fill in the whole squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I don't have any partial squares to add up to make another whole, and so I'm going to say my area equals 10 square units. And this is, because there's no partial squares, it is exact. All right, let's look at another one. We have this oval shape, and this is not quite a hole. I just start counting. This one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Because this is so close to a hole, I'm going to go ahead and count it as a hole. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I have these two make 17. This one, I guess we could say, is 18, and those two, 19. And so I'm going to say the area equals about 19 square units, and this is an estimate. And that's why I didn't write about, is because we are telling that it is an estimate. Okay, let's look at number 5. Number 5, we have squares. It doesn't matter where you start counting, but do try to fill in your numbers. Do write numbers on them, that way it'll keep you straight when you're counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. There were no partial squares, so our area equals 14 units squared, or 14 square units, and this is exact. All right, let's do one more. This little oddball shape here, we've got some whole squares here in the middle and some partial squares here. We'll say 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are a little more than a half, so, but we can put them together and say that's a whole. Put those together and say that's a whole. So 1, 2, 3, 4, those two 5, this one's 6. We would say the area equals 6 square units. And this is it exact? No, because I had to put squares together. So this is an estimate. Now, when you're doing this, because this is an estimate, look at number 6. If you said 7 square units, it would not necessarily be wrong because this is an estimate. If you put those together and say, well, that's a half or more than a whole, because each one is greater than a half, and this is a little more than whole, so I'm going to say 7 square units, and that's close enough to be correct. Now, if you said 8 square units, or if you said 5 square units, that would be wrong. So there's a little bit of leeway in these estimates. All right, so I'm also, if you're having trouble with these lessons, Miss Mincy is creating some slides for us that are informative and helpful. So I'm going to post those as an option. If you're having trouble, you don't have to do the slides, but if you are still having trouble after watching the video, go to the slides. They're just there to give you extra support. And then of course you can always contact me. I'm here for you. But I think the slides are helpful. I don't want it to take the place of my videos, but I do think that they're helpful and you might like them. So check them out if you need to. You can go ahead and if you think you're ready, you can go ahead and go to your practice page and start on that. Don't forget to do your digital quick check. And have a great day. Say bye to Shelly. Bye, Shelly.